We need to stop looking at AI as a rival and recognize it is the mirror reflecting back to us that's going to allow us to become more human. If we try to compete with the machines in the near future, we're going to lose because it's going to do everything we can do, with the exception it's going to do it about 1,000 times better.
Welcome. I'm Harmony Slater, your host of the Finding Harmony podcast. Over the past 20 years, I've taught thousands of yoga teachers and students to explore the intersection between ancient wisdom and modern everyday life, using mind-body practices to heal, awaken, and manifest their dreams from the inside out. This podcast is a sanctuary for those feeling overwhelmed by life's challenges. Are you ready to jump in and discover how these challenges aren't actually in the way, but are the way to finding harmony? Let's invite the magic back in. What happens when outward success stops being enough and something deeper starts asking for your attention? Today's episode is so much fun. We are having a wide-ranging conversation with my co-host, Russell Case. And we are welcoming Pete Sacco, who is an incredibly interesting human being. And he has written this beautiful book called Living in Bliss: Achieve a Balanced Existence of Mind, Body, and Spirit. And this is the cutest, incredible little book. It's so sweet and so interesting. And it is his story of really being 358 pounds at the start of his journey, type 2 diabetes, and on death's doorstep, literally, to coming in 2025, bringing his weight down to 199 pounds, completely having his type 2 diabetes in remission, and really one of the happiest, most joyful and fulfilled humans that we've ever met. So in this conversation, we are exploring what it really looks like to integrate some deep spiritual insight into your everyday life, just as a regular, normal, everyday person, not someone who's been to Mysore or devoted 25 years to spiritual practices and, regulating their nervous system or meditating daily, but how these very, very powerful practices can impact someone immediately. And so Pete's book is all about his journey, which started not so long ago, and the phenomenal results that he has achieved and attained. His book not only looks at the physical principles of health and healing and how to live your best possible life physically, but also the spiritual steps he went through, the mindset shifts that he went through, as well as looking at your core values and what it means to bring your core values into everyday life. We are going to talk all about his journey, what brought him there, and what's next for him, as well as he has the most interesting job all about setting up data centers in the world of artificial intelligence. So we're going all over the place today, but in a very orderly, organized kind of way. And you're going to continue to hear this echo of themes that are coming up in the podcast this year, which is really about the face of frequency, how emotions can shape your health, your longevity, your vitality, even the way you look, and your feeling of youthfulness inside. And how our emotional patterns and our energetic states are actually imprinting themselves on our physical body, and how we can start to unwind these effects, but we can't just do it from the physical layer, from the physical body, but we need to start in the quantum. in the unseen, in the invisible realm, because that's where they started. So I hope you find this conversation fascinating. And if you're curious about going deeper with this work, I would love for you to join one of my 2 masterclasses coming up, February 21st or March 7th. And until then, let's jump in with Pete Sacco and talk all about how he learned to live his life every day in bliss. Hello. I'm so excited you're here today because our guest...
No. Every time.
No,
every week.
I don't want to. I'm not supposed to always say that. It's so boring.
Welcome to the Finding Harmony podcast. My name is Harmony Slater. This is my co-host, Russell Case.
Everyone knows
That's who I am. And we're so excited. We have a special guest for you today that's going to come on and talk about his journey. As everyone knows, we've been promoted by Dos Equis, the most interesting man on the planet, for going on 5 years. They haven't actually cut those
Sponsored
checks yet, but they are aware of our work.
We're manifesting it.
I love it. Yeah, absolutely. Make it happen. I love that I come on the Harmony broadcast and it started with disharmony, right?
Yeah.
Right away, there was conflict.
Every time.
Guys, thank you so much for even considering me and having me on. And this is special.
It's a pleasure. You know, you said something so funny before we started recording.
His name is Pete Sacco,
Yeah.
Living in Bliss, and he's going to come on and talk to us about his new book. He's going to talk to us about his life journey, which is so fascinating. What were you going to say,
I was
Harmony?
going to say, he said, my family understands me. My parents don't understand me. My clients tolerate me.
Yeah.
It's such a good introduction.
Yeah, that's it. You know, we were talking about it in the green room, right? I find myself being a bit of an anomaly, right? Well, I'll tell the story, but I'm 58 years old, right? And I am knee deep in technology. I design and build data centers, which are at the forefront of AI, right? And so I've got a lot of opinions about where AI is going. But I also have 3 little girls, 7, 5, and 3-year-old little girls.
Mm-hmm.
And then I've got a 37-year-old son and 12, 10, and 2-year-old grandchildren. So to my friends, my tennis guys, the guys I grew up with, and people who are older me, they look at me like, dude, what are you doing? What's with the kids? What's with the speeding up and not slowing down? What's with the living with AI and you're a crypto trader and you're doing like, what? Come on, man. We're supposed to be retiring to playing tennis and golf. And then I look at the younger people, right? And I'm the one looking at them going, man, you've got the world by it right now. You know, you don't realize it yet, but you're the future of the world. You're going to innovate more than every subsequent generation has done, added together and multiplied by 4. But nobody realizes that yet. And they're like, oh my God, come and be our spokesperson because everybody hates us. And so I'm like, yeah, I got it because look, you have no experience. That's the problem.
Yeah.
And this is an interesting world because that generation right now is the first generation that's going to get supplanted by AI. It's going to be tough being a college graduate right now. You have no experience in the world, right? And then you're going to move into the jobs that AI is going to initially do the best.
Yeah.
Do you know who's got the world by it right now? The 40 to 60-year-olds, the people who have broken more shit in the world and have learned from it, right? Because AI is not that good yet. And so look, it will be eventually, but in the short term, the people who have learned how to figure things out, be creative, spontaneous, figure it out while you're doing it. That's the guy that's invaluable to the company right now.
Yeah, incredible.
But look, AI is going to do fantastical things, more than we could ever imagine, but it's going to be a difficult journey.
See, I know Russell wants to get into your story, but
I want to get into the story.
I have a question while we're talking about AI.
Well, I'd like to get into that maybe a bit later.
No, I want to talk about it right now because we're on it.
I love it. More harmony.
Welcome to Disharmony. Disharmony Slater.
So there's like a lot of environmental concern with AI, right? It uses so much water for the cooling. Like
energy.
It's a big energy. What's the drawbacks? Like, I feel guilty whenever I'm talking to ChatGPT. I feel like I'm killing the environment.
Yeah, you're right. And so, like, there's a lot of misnomers, right? But yes, it uses a tremendous amount of energy. And here, let me frame it first. If AI was a 24-hour clock, right? 24 hours. We're at 2:00 in the morning. We've got 22 hours left to go. By noon, we're not even going to recognize the world.
Yeah.
So let's set the framework as to, first of all, The average person has no idea what's coming, right? Because the change is going to be fast and furious. I like to frame it this way. If you go back 100 years from today, and we use that as a framework, just go back 100 years. Okay, we weren't alive, but this is what the world looked like at 100 years. And you're like, oh yeah, hell, that's vastly different than right now. Okay, now look 100 years forward, and what might that look like? And now make it 10 years from today.
Yeah, exactly, right? It's
and
crazy.
then go 1,000 years in the future, and now you have an idea what 100 years might look like. And here's for me. So I'm going to give the good before the bad.
Okay.
Every generation prior to us, their desire was to change the world for the better and build some form of a utopian world, right?
Mm-hmm.
The end game of AI is that we truly live in a post-scarcity world where there is no figure of fill in the blank, poverty, pain, crime, because there is no want, because there is no longer any need.
Just as you might see like in the Federation and Star Trek, where they all their needs are fulfilled, and now their
Yes.
goal is discovery.
Absolutely. And that's perfectly analogous, right? How often art imitates life, right? Somebody thought about that. Gene had that, Roddenberry had that thought. But I believe that's where we go, right? That's where this world is headed. It's funny, I'm working on a TED Talk right now that's related to the AI. It's called The World as We Know It Is Ending, and here's why that's a great thing. And my premise is that we need to stop looking at AI as a rival and recognize it as the mirror reflecting back to us that's going to allow us to become more human. If we try to compete with the machines in the near future, we're going to lose because it's going to do everything we can do, with the exception it's going to do it about 1,000 times better.
And faster.
Yeah, and everything. So let it schedule, let it optimize, let it pick things up and put things down, but let it build wealth for us. We spent 10,000 years identifying our self-worth by what we do, by our productivity. But what if that's never what the universe needed from us? Look, we're going to talk about my journey, my discovery of spirituality, and my experience is that that's exactly what the universe never needed from us. Had nothing to do with what we built, had nothing to do with how smart we thought we were, right? That, at the root of it, it's just like every ism, Catholicism, Judaism, Sufism, Taoism, you name the ism, right? They said the same thing. We are all somehow connected by something far greater than ourselves. And I love the fact that that opens it up for many, many interpretations. But then every religion put it in a wrapper that was for the time. It made it understandable, teachable, but it actually put all kinds of things in there with it, that were there. But I believe at the end game, Harmony, at the end game of this, the machines will have amassed such massive superhuman intelligence that it will have discovered, probably before we do, our importance in the universe, our role, our meaning in the universe, and it will explain it to us as though we were children. And when it does, it's going to get us to recognize how special and unique we are in the universe in such a way that it will treat us far better than we've ever treated ourselves or each other.
This does sound a lot like the plot to Pluribus that we've been...
I told you it's about AI. It's all about AI.
I'm very interested in something that's happened to you late in life, kind of a spiritual transformation, an opening, a flowering. And I wonder if you could kind of take us on the arc of this discovery, because I saw this beautiful picture of you on your website of Pete Sacco in high school playing football in Lodi, New Jersey.
Yep.
I want to know more about that kid and how he got from A to B. I played football in Louisiana. I was a wide receiver until someone dislocated my femur out of the pelvis socket.
That'll do it.
Yeah. But I still miss it. I still think so fondly on violence and committing violence and having violence committed onto me.
I'm a season ticket holder for the New Jersey Devils. I'm an avid sports fan. I grew up with it. I love it. It's part of who I grew up with. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, I grew up that mild-mannered kid, a pudgy little boy in a suburb in northern New Jersey, right?
Yeah.
And had a pretty great life, right, as a young kid. And I eventually went to school, studied quantum mechanics at Fairleigh Dickinson University, Rutgers first. Then I transferred to Fairleigh Dickinson when I decided I wasn't good enough in the math and I didn't really want to be a teacher in quantum mechanics and to do the research side of it. I tend to be a people person, right? And so I switched to engineering with the hopes that I'd be able to blend the peopleness of it with the technology because, we got to remember, I was born in 1967. So George Lucas made Star Wars for me, right?
Yeah.
I was 9 years old when that movie came out.
Exactly.
And I swear to God, it's why I became an engineer, right? Because I was enamored with the idea of this technology and the future, what it could possibly be, right?
It's an interesting point because so many of us, and you named your son Jedi, but so many of us got into yoga because we saw the scene with Padawan, Luke Skywalker, and Yoda. We said, that's what we want to do. We want to do that.
We want to go train with Yoda.
I just took the girls to Disney and we went to Hollywood Studios and I went to which I felt like I landed in Tatooine.
Yeah, it's just like that.
I made a lightsaber.
Oh,
Amazing.
Yeah. My kids couldn't drag me out of there. It's the most expensive toy I've ever bought myself. It is unbelievable. But anyway, that was the foundation, I think, that led to this idea that I needed to do something in technology. So if you flash forward then, my dad also was an entrepreneur. He was in the mortgage industry. And then I got married first time very young. And my father-in-law, I had a great relationship with him and he owned a big trucking company in Pennsylvania. So I feel like I was born to be an entrepreneur because here I was and during a stage. And sure enough, I started my company in my 30s and we design and build data centers, like I said, and been doing it for a very long time. And now with AI, it's at a whole different scale. But I played football in high school. I played it in college. I coached, but I woke up one day.
Oh, you did college football at Rutgers?
Oh, yeah, I did. I played.
Wow.
I was well, and here is so I woke up one day at 39 years old, post football career and everything, not going to turn pro. 368 pounds.
Are you tall? Are you super
I'm
tall?
6'2", so not.
Yeah,
not,
okay. You got the
but
frame.
368. Let me tell you, I was a big.
Yeah.
And I wasn't feeling good one day, and I went to the doctor, and he pushed the medication across the table, and she says, "Congratulations, Peter, you've joined the ranks of the unhealthy. All these years that you've been an athlete, you've been doing this," but she says, "Keep it up. Your grandparents just died in their 90s. You won't see 90 years old if you keep this up." Well, that's enough to scare the crap out of anybody.
Yeah.
Right? Today, I call it the pivotal moment that, my low, and unfortunately, we all seem to have a low that's our moment of transformation, right? I just think that's actually part of our nature, right? Why do anything when it doesn't need to be done, right? Here I needed to do something. And today I framed it as I really kind of built a framework without calling it at the time, but today I call it my commit, learn, and do framework. The first part of that was to commit that I needed to change in my life. And so I remember the day that I had told my ex-wife now that I needed to go on a business trip. But what I really did is I went down by my parents and I said that, look, I got to make some changes in my life. I says, number one, I got to get healthy because if I don't have my health, I can't do the rest of the other 6 things. But number two, I'm going to get a divorce because we're not good for one another. Now, we had never had children together. I had a son, but from a relationship prior to that, a woman I was never married to, and I was estranged from that son. So commitment number 3, I says, I'm going to build a relationship with that son, seek him out, and I'm going to do that. And number 4, how can I have this level of good things in my life, a certain amount of material success in business and things like that, but why am I so miserably unhappy? Why am I so unfulfilled? And I said, so I'm going to figure out what this idea of happiness is. And I also commit, by the way, I says, I'm going to get remarried. And no, I don't know her yet, Mom. And I'm going to have children with this person because by God, if they turn out to be miserable, at least you're going to be miserable in my own image. Right? I will have something to do with their development. Right? So that was the commitment. But then I learned, and it started with body, hence why the book is called Living in Bliss, Body, Mind, and Spirit, right? Because it's normally pronounced mind, body, and spirit, right? But body for me was the first part. It actually turns out the easiest part right? I like to say I cheated, right? I started going along and I first lost about 120 pounds over the course of a year just by following an Atkins-like diet, but it didn't stick. And then you gained weight again and then it did. And at some point though, I finally had weight loss surgery and it was the last thing that actually helped me get down to it. Today, I'm probably in the best shape of my life at 58 years old, about 190 pounds. I play tennis 4 or 5 times a week. I have all the energy in the world. I told you, I'm the unicorn. I'm the guy that like, man, dude, you got to take it down a notch now and again, right? And so I just I love it right now. Life was, but the body is so resilient. The moment I was good to it, it was good to me back.
Yeah.
Right. And I've learned and I speak about so much about how to build weight resilience in yourself today. Right. I mean, I was the person that I could eat nothing and still gain weight. But I can tell you, I've transformed my body. I built a body that is resilient such that I could eat anything today and I won't gain weight. And part of that is step number 2, reframe the mind. And that's way harder than fixing the body. First of all, there's absolutely a mind-body connection. And it took 30 years of continual evolution. And in the book, I actually talking about like the first feeling was like you throw a rubber ball in the air, right? That's what you aspire and you hit good things, but gravity's a bitch, right? And it comes crashing back down. And, then the ball bounces again, but it doesn't quite go as high. But at some point I realized it has nothing to do with the highs and the lows. It has the fact that the ball's continuing to move forward. And then I say it's more like life is like being a cork on the ocean. You really have no control as to whether when you're high and when you're low. You just have to accept the fact that that's where I am at this moment in time. And if I forgive everything that I did and everybody else did at any given moment, and I give gratitude for where I am at any point in life, then you'll never be disappointed. You'll just be. And so that was the first time that I started to realize that I was the architect of everything good, but also everything bad in my life. And that if I start to just make changes to my life and actually learn everything there was to do about the things and changes I wanted to do, and then go out and do them, then I can actually create a different life.
Can I just ask, so this is about 15 to 20 years ago, and I'm sorry to interrupt your flow. I'm just very curious about the mentorship that you were receiving. What were you reading and who is percolating these ideas for you?
Yeah, that's great. So first it was that doctor. I'll never forget, somewhere along in the journey, I went through a bout of horrific anxiety. It was about the time that I wasn't fully divorced yet. I had met who now is my wife and the love of my life. And we were already planning. In fact, it's a little joke. She was actually the marketing coordinator in one of my companies. And I like to say that I married her to avoid the sexual harassment lawsuit. And then I gave her 3 kids just to make it stick. Yeah. And the reason why I told her about the anxiety, because I think this was the first time that I sat with a doctor. I knew that the anxiety was killing me. I wasn't sleeping. So I'm smart enough that I knew that I needed somebody other than myself that I could explain what was going on. I found and I researched that, I think I need cognitive behavioral therapy.
CBT.
So I found this guy, Dr. David Glazer, right here in New Jersey. He's retired now. But I sat down with him. And after a few sessions and everything, you do this, he goes, Pete, he told me the thing that resounded: do not make the events of your life, which you have no control over, your problems. Because that's what I was doing. I would think about all the things in the past and wish things that would change. And then I would think, remember, I'm an engineer, so I could calculate like a madman and I would predict exactly what was going to happen in the future from right now. But he's like, none of that has happened. The only place it's happened is in your mind. You're making problems out of your current situation and you're stressing over things that may or may not be. And let me tell you, that one little thought, though it would be a while before it would dare, but that one little epiphany moment was something that I realized that there's something at play. We are a mind-body self, and that mind-body self at that point has some sort of a programming in it. But I began to question whether that really was who I was. Was I just the full extent of the programming, or was there something more? So then the role models, it began a journey. I've always been a good learner. I call it one of my superpowers. So I'll never forget, I read Becoming Superhuman by Joe Dispenza. And I had been a meditator, but I don't think I really understood meditation until I started to delve into the likes of actually the people that Joe learned from, people like Paul Brunting.
Yeah,
Paul
Paul
Brunton.
Brunton's great. Wait a second.
Ramana
Wait a
Maharshi.
second. How does an ex-Rutgers football player who's into business start meditating? That's a big jump.
Yeah, no, meditation actually at least was the idea of mindfulness. I'm not sure that I ever called it meditation, but centering myself so much in sports is being able to forget the moment and or forget everything that just happened or is going to happen and live in the moment.
Yeah.
I seem to have been able to do it then much better in sport than I was able to do it in life, right? And so, but then it was funny that guy, David Laser, the social worker who helped me, the CBT guy, he told me to go take some transcendental meditation classes.
Okay.
Yeah, so that was really the first formal training that I had in that. And I found great solace and great peace in there. I've since now teach meditation, right? And I believe meditation is a journey like all things in life, right? And there's stages of development that you go through in this realization. And most of the early phases, in fact, if not all of them, are an outward journey of improving resilience within yourself or accomplishing something, changing yourself from the inside out. Like, for instance, changing your mind. I am in the camp of there is no such thing as willpower, right? We're like what Jonathan Haidt in his book, The Happiness Hypothesis, we're the rider on the elephant, right? And no matter how much we want to go over there, if the peanut is in the corner of the room and the elephant wants the peanut, we're eating peanuts that day, children. Yeah. So we go there because we are beholden to our programming.
Yeah.
But you would think, well, Pete, you just killed all of free will. Not really, right? Yes, we are a product of what our unconscious and subconscious motivations are, but by giving ourselves new experiences and new learning, we can actually reframe how we think by changing our unconscious and subconscious motivators. And the body is built with beautiful processes to do that. Just like we are not our DNA, we have an epigenetic system that we can actually control through our environment, not just by the way our physical environment, but our mental environment. We can express genes on and off. And that is how our DNA adapts, but our DNA never changes. Most who we are is actually just 80% of it is probably governed by our environment, not our genetics. And our brain is adaptable through neurogenesis, the ability to grow new brain cells, which is a more recent discovery, and our neuroplasticity, the ability to reformat our brains. So somewhere along all of these books and trainings like Brunton and like them, and then going down the books of Deepak Chopra and, and all guys like that, you start to discover that the idea of oneness and self-transformation has been taught by every great mystic ever.
Yes.
You think it's an epiphany of yourself and you're like, well, it's only been around since man is around.
Yeah.
And then I decided, wow, how deep does this actually go? Which then began as there started to be some vast changes of me, mind and body wise. And I started to have a realization that perhaps I will never forget another homage. How about to Dan Buettner from the guy who wrote the Blue Zones?
Oh, yeah, the Blue Zones.
And I love when
we saw that.
Yeah, he's the guy. The centenarians are kind of
right.
Certain places of the world, Okinawa, Japan, and Sardinia, and Yorba Linda, California, right? And his whole book and series was about what were the commonalities between them, right? Because your first instinct was, well, it has to be diet and exercise. And surely those two things are on the list, but they're not 1 and 2.
Yeah.
Oddly enough, 1 and 2 were the idea that a belief and a faith in something far greater than ourselves exists. And I thought, holy crap, right? That idea that there's something far greater than our mind, body, self is what really has propelled mankind throughout our entire 4 million year evolution.
Yeah.
Harmony told me this mind-blowing thing the other day about the origin of Alcoholics Anonymous, which sounds so much like that sentence that you just said. do you remember what you told me?
Oh, that the founder of AA, he actually also had, with the help of plant medicine, that's how he actually overcame his alcoholism.
Yes.
And then he went on to found AA.
But it was based on like this surrendering to a higher power, which you saw and realized
which
through
he
that
realized
experience
through that
with plant
experience.
medicine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And again, to an homage, I actually wrote to him. It was a friend. I don't know if he wants it out there, so I won't say his name, but he was a myofascial manipulator.
Mhm.
And I was seeing him for back problems. And I noticed his whole work center was very a nod to First Nation and lots of spirituality and things. And so I'm like, dude, what's with all of the gongs and what's with all of the, the
Yeah.
stuff? And he's like, well, and he introduced me to this idea that, plant medicines. Have you ever done anything like that? And I'm like, dude, I was an athlete. No, we don't,
Yeah.
we don't do things like that. He goes, well, do me a favor. He goes, you're a pretty smart guy. He goes, I want you to watch How to Change Your Mind on Netflix.
Hmm.
And they basically did a story on MDMA, psilocybin, mescaline, and ayahuasca.
Mhm.
And I watched it. And again, it was very science driven, which to an engineer, right? You want to get me to do anything, prove to me that there's something there. And so he invited me to a ceremony for the very first time. And it was MDMA and ketamine.
Oh,
It was profound, right? I mean, if you've never had an out of body experience, take ketamine, you'll have truly an out of body experience.
so
Right?
walk
And
us through. You go
yeah,
into what kind of room, and you
yeah,
sat
it
on
was
what kind of chair?
I was on the ground on a back jack up against a wall, and there was all kinds of people whom I didn't know.
Uh-huh.
And again, remember, I had been meditating for a long time
Mhm.
at this point, but I had never had the spiritual awakening that people talked about.
Mhm.
I had never felt energy flow in and through my body, right?
Mhm.
So you still had that self-doubt whether that exists. But when you took these and you lose the inhibitions of mind and programming, I discovered firsthand in that first time, I had a conversation with my daughters in that realm
Mhm.
that was an advanced time. It was them as girls, but them as women who had already lived a life.
Mm.
And I knew in a moment, I don't know how long it even was, but I knew in that moment, everything that they needed from me that I had delivered correctly and that I had delivered incorrectly. And it's funny, I want to tell very quickly what it was. My oldest daughter, she is highly emotional, lovely, and gifted, but she's going to be a tortured soul all her life because she wears her heart on her sleeve like I do,
Mhm.
right? And she's just constantly disappointed by the failings of herself and others, right?
Mhm.
So she's constantly be struggled. So she told me, she goes, Dad, thank you for being there. I needed you all my life to continue to build me up and support me and do all that things. And she goes, I never doubted for a moment that you were always there for me. So thank you. And I thought, Jesus, right? At first, that blew me away. And then all of a sudden, if that ended, my second daughter, Gigi, came to me and she's like, oh my God, Dad, I was scared of everything all my life. She goes, but with the day that you told me that, that I would never have to be scared because you learned how not to be scared so late in your life, but you would teach me that I didn't have to be scared from a little girl. Right?
Mhm.
And I thought, oh my God. But then Sunny came to me, Sienna, and she's like, you know, I never really needed you, Dad. You did everything, but I'm so glad that you were there. I know that I'll love you forever and I'll know there, but I knew that girl's going to own the universe.
Mhm.
Right? And
Yeah.
this was my first experience. And I'll never forget leaving there. I was just transformed. And I had this distinct experience during the ketamine portion, where all of a sudden I'm resolving this in my head. I'm like, did that really just happen? Or did I just make this all up? Right? So was it just of mind or was it this? And I saw myself as the person I wished I could be and the person that I am.
Mm.
And then all of a sudden I had this out of body experiences and both of them persisted above me. And I was able to think both as the person, the flawed human being that I am, but as this person that I aspire to be.
Mhm.
I now can rationalize it that in this moment, perhaps for the first time, I was able to create new neural pathways
Mm.
to the person that I chose that I wanted to be.
Mhm.
And that began this inner transformation. I had this first mystical moment, this first spiritual moment late in life. It's so, yeah, actually, now that I think about it, it was actually 3 years ago because Sunny was there. She was just being born, right?
Wow.
And this child wasn't even born yet. And so there I was. Since that time, now I became, oh my God, if this is possible, bring it on, right? Bring on the ayahuasca, bring on the mescaline, bring on right? And then you began to maybe perhaps even overdo it, right? And what I started to be confronted with was my own fears and self-doubt and ego, and I would confront it, and I would have these visions and these experiences and these things that I never lived through. What I've come to realize that today is that, or come to believe, is that we are a compilation of our entire human history gets programmed into our brain. And if you do these medicines, you can begin to unravel all the suffering and all the good things that you, from the day that your prefrontal cortex is created from 0 to 25, all the way through the ancient parts of brain. And when I started to really just continue to unravel, I came to the conclusion that in the origins of species, we were either the killer or the one being killed. And that the pain and the trauma from that persists in us to this day. But in the fateful day I talk about in the book, after now a couple years of working with integrators and facilitators and helping getting the explanation, I'll never forget, it was an ayahuasca ceremony. And I was sitting there and I was ready to confront my own ego. I'd had these visions of this tower and I was fearful of the tower and what it represented. And that I talk about it in the book. It was a very cold, sterile environment, and there was numbers and there was things I didn't understand. But I felt like I was at the very beginning of us as human beings. I was petrified of it. But a friend told me, he goes, Pete, you're kind of confronting all the layers of mind. Maybe just ask it one time to see, is there anything beyond this? And in that day, the day of the awakening, I sat in this medicine and I felt all the fear and all the self-doubt and all of the pain coming on. And I grounded myself, and all of a sudden there was it in front of me. All. And I could see the fear and the self-doubt. And I could see myself. And it was in that moment that I looked at it and I'm like, whoa, if that's me, and what's this? And I sat and I felt what this felt like, and I let it be. And I realized that I sat in a spacious stillness, the greatest peace I had ever felt. And I was confused by it. And I thought, well, let me jump back into turmoil. Can I do that? And I did. And I was able to, and I could feel it viscerally in the moment, in the present. I felt all the fear and the doubts and all of the pain coming in. And I'm like, okay, we had enough of that again. And I out. And I realized that thing that I was likely in was consciousness itself. I believe today that we're like a radio dial, that consciousness for me is non-local. Consciousness is the information field that binds us. We're like avatars, and we are consciousness observing consciousness. If we allow ourselves to be beyond the narrow set of frequencies that is us in this illusory form that we call time and space that we've created for ourselves, we can actually become timeless. And we could sit in a space if we allow ourselves to lose personal identity. And it's the most peaceful place you could ever find. And today, I don't always need plant medicines to find that space, but it's difficult. But it's also joyous because I know it's there. And so that changed a lot because you realize all of the things that we consider to be problems are just problems that we're creating. And so it allowed me to realize for the first time, experience that there's something far greater than ourselves.
It's really dramatic to hear these profound mystic realizations coming from you, Pete. I think for, say, pop culture, what you're used to is like your psychotherapists spouting this kind of mystic realization, like that kind of guy.
Your guru.
Your guru follower, your guy that studied psychology at Harvard. And that guy is the archetype that you normally see with these kinds of realizations. But today, Harmony and I we're talking to a lot of guys who are in their middle-aged dudes, bros, who have, I don't know, maybe listened to Joe Rogan talk about DMT on his podcast.
Yeah.
And are in the middle of the paradigm that is, as Tom Wolfe called, the masters of the universe.
Yep.
And they're now having these kinds of profundities happen to them, while at the same time driving the technology that is moving our society in the direction that it is.
Yeah.
And it's mind-boggling to me, as one of those dorks who was an artist and a yoga student, and to see it come around now, and to see someone like you wearing that vest saying those kinds of things,
right,
is wild to hear.
Well, I told you, unicorn.
Unicorn.
Yeah. I do feel like it, because, when I tell this to my 50 and 60-year-old friends, again, that's one of the things they're like, dude, you are out there.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
yeah.
so
you're at the cutting edge.
But I wish I could wrap it up and I could give it to everybody that I love, and even everybody that I don't love, to be able to know that you can find a place of spacious stillness in your life. And what you'll discover is that you don't have to find it. You don't have to create it. It's already there. You have to surrender to allow it to happen.
Yeah, that's the key. That's the key. It's never not here.
Yeah.
Just our mind gets busy and we're not paying attention. But anytime we want.
You know what the beauty for me is? So when I wrote the book, a really good piece of criticism that I took to heart was that, Pete, okay, it's a good story. And I get a lot of that feedback. Look, it's interesting that it's coming from you. You had a moment of enlightenment, right? I didn't wake up and I suddenly had white hair and flowing robes, though I think white hair would be pretty cool.
It's coming. It's coming.
The criticism was that, Pete, it's 100% conjecture and experiential. You've got no proof. You're making claims that consciousness is non-local.
Yeah.
And you're making claims that this is approachable, and so there's a lot of things that you're putting out as fact, but you're not actually saying that this is my opinion of the fact, it's experiential. And I took that hard because I realized, I wrote it very personally. I tell everybody, look, I wrote the book cathartically. It was really to get it down on paper for me, right? However, recently, there's a whole bunch of people that are actually doing the science behind this now, that are actually finding that even if you're in the world of small particle physics, I'm here in New Jersey, house of Princeton University, big customer of mine, so big affinity to Princeton University. But there's a professor there who's studying right now something called positive geometries, right? Believe me, I'm not going to go off the rails on it because I barely get the math itself. But positive geometries is something akin to this. He started looking at the patterns that interactions of small particles, right? Not atoms, but not quarks, but not leptons, this really small stuff. And he started looking at the math to be able to predict these scattered patterns. And the math is hairy. And I guess maybe the moment was that, things that are profoundly true, there seems to be an elegance to them. And this was anything but elegant. So he says, well, maybe there's a different way to frame it. I don't know how the human brain actually does this, but he had the idea that if I was to hold this object up in space and I was to put a light source here, it would project a shadow. But in mathematics world, we can actually take the shadow, and if we know certain things about the shadow, we can actually back calculate what actually was there that was projecting the shadow. So he said, I wonder if we could say and presume that there's something in a different plane of existence that would actually create the mathematical model with a fair degree of precision.
Mm-hmm.
It turns out that math model can actually be done in about a half a page. It's elegant.
Mm-hmm.
It actually shows for the first time, he's beginning to show that he can recreate most of the physics of the known universe by extrapolating from another source. Now that's profound, because that actually means that time and space is actually emergent from some other source.
100%.
I like to call that other source consciousness.
Yeah.
So I want to bring this physicist to your attention. Do you know Maria Strome?
No.
Okay, so she has a theory that, like you said, needs to now be proved.
Yep.
But the theory stems from the problem of consciousness being something that's created by a higher level being, like that model. And then so whence does it come? Like you can't find it in the human brain. So, and then the brain dies and then it's gone. Consciousness is gone. Like where did it go? So she has a different kind of notion of the elemental state of the universe as consciousness.
Consciousness is the matrix from which all things arise.
All right, so you're going to want to make this guy down. Start looking into a guy named Donald Hoffman. So Donald Hoffman is actually a psychologist, well-studied. I think he's at UC Irvine, if I'm not mistaken. Donald, if I'm wrong, I apologize.
Cognitive psychologist, yeah.
But he is doing math using Markov charts, Markov modeling, to show that we are a collection of experiences and we can create most of life by building these Markov charts and combining them together. So by vast amounts of experience and we can actually recreate most of life as we know it, which again is interesting because it is basically creating the same thing as the Princeton professor in showing that there's a mathematical basis to show that we are creating the illusion of the nature of the universe because it's explainable to us in a way that's organized well enough for us to understand. But it is likely not the actual nature of reality.
The 2019 book, The Case Against Reality.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. That reminds me a lot of taking LSD, actually. That in taking LSD, I feel like suddenly everything, all of the sensory experiences that I have are mediated by the brain, are suddenly disrupted, and you see the universe as it is, as pure energy.
You see it inside.
Yeah. There's so much that I believe going back to where we started, I believe the AI is going to allow us to learn at a far greater clip than what we do. You know, I know in my life, I'm using AI for anything, and it is doing everything but not allowing me to learn. I mean, I love when people say, well, it's going to take away our ability to memorize, our ability to reason. Really? I'm such a better writer, such a better person, such a better everything, because the amount of the things I can do, learn, imbibe, ingest, research is so much richer, faster, easier than it ever was before. We are going to become superhuman so quickly. It is going to boggle the mind. Forget about the fact that we're going to be the first generation that just doesn't outlive our parents and grandparents a little bit. I'm talking a lot, right? My 3-year-old, if nothing happens in healthcare, right, due to AI, my 3-year-old will live in a world that the average age will be 100 years old. And that's if nothing happens. And what's the chance of that? I mean, I've got substantial changes in my life. I'm doing it so that I don't watch them get older. I want to watch them become old. You know, in my book, I tell, in fact, at the end of the book, I tell that same day that I had the awakening. And not only did I have that awakening moment of viewing what I said is consciousness itself, but that I also had my quantum mechanics as I was coming out of the medicine kicked in. And I had this nature of this idea of non-local consciousness and that we were energy beings. And it's the stuff of the second book. But as I was really coming out, I had a distinct vision.
Mm.
And in that vision, there was an old man and he was sitting in a chair, and he wasn't old. He was old,
Mm.
right? And he was just sitting and I looked around and he was sitting in his study. And he looked up and he looked at me, and I felt a reverence like I had never felt before. And I thought it was God,
Mhm.
right? And so what do you do if you confront God in his den, in his chair? You kneel to him, right? Because that's what you do.
Mhm.
And so I bowed to him, I kneeled down, and our eyes locked. And I realized in that moment, I could feel everything that he could feel. And then I kind of primally knew that he could feel everything that I could feel.
Mhm.
And I realized in that moment, he was dying. This was his last moments that he was spending on earth, and he was choosing to spend it with me.
Mm.
And as I had that realization, I looked around and I realized that there was people around him, and there was his children and his children's children and his children's children's children. And I thought, oh my God, he's really old.
Mhm.
And they weren't looking at him with sadness. They were looking at it with the same reverence that I did, because he had set out to live a life of selflessness and altruism and pass on what little wisdom that he was able to do and pass it on. And he was dying knowing that what he believed was going to be carried on by his people,
Hmm.
and it would be carried on. And you know where this is going. In that moment, I realized as he died, I was the old man,
Yeah.
and I watched myself die. And
Mhm.
I remember when I came out and I finally had this reason, I had tears flowing down my face, and I had my book sitting next to me, and I could show you the notes, the scribbled down, and I did it. And then the next day in AI, I asked you to produce the picture,
Oh.
Oh.
Yeah.
and that's the picture.
Yeah.
And I thought, oh my God. So I was blessed to not just have one experience, but 3 experiences that just profoundly changed me, all in that one moment of letting go of who I thought I was, right? To allow it to just show me something.
Mm.
To this day, you can't tell me that that was something local to me.
Mhm.
It was something that was timeless, something that was far beyond our ability to explain,
Mhm.
at least right now.
Mhm.
But I'm
Yeah.
building the AI that I believe will explain it to us.
Can I ask
Amazing.
a personal question? We can edit
Yeah.
this out if you don't wanna touch on the subject at
Sure.
all, but I a couple of times I've smiled to myself as I've heard you exclaim, "Oh my God," or "Jesus," and I wonder if maybe if you grew up Catholic.
I did. I did grow up Catholic. And that was my frame for spirituality. I thought everything was in religion, right? And I went to Catholic high school, and I'm not particularly religious today,
Mhm.
though I would say I have a profound spirituality today.
Mhm.
And so,
Truly.
it was funny. Trey Downs, who I've never met, and honestly, the only time I've seen him on his podcast, but he wrote something one time, and I thought it was really good. So Trey, this one's for you, because if you don't know who he is, look him up. But he said something that I thought was really, really good. When I was playing football, I studied the martial arts for years, and he was describing how training for spirituality as to what we're trying to attain is much like training to fight.
Mhm.
When you train to fight, you spar, but it's controlled. I hit you, you hit me, I learn how to block, you learn how to block, I learn how to counter strike, you learn how to counter strike, and it's controlled. And we do that so when the gloves come off, we respond to defend ourselves.
Hmm.
Well, why we practice this, why we practice the idea of spirituality is much the same. We do it in a controlled environment. It's easy to meditate and be calm in a controlled environment. We do it, and we do these things, and we train our mind and body self so that in the moments when we really need it, we have it at our disposal.
Mhm.
In those moments that when you're sitting in utter chaos, you realize that you're the architect of that chaos,
Mhm.
and you can be the architect of the unchaos.
Mhm.
And we realize it in those moments that, when you're being critical of somebody or something, that what we're really doing is just being critical of the thing in others that we find most repulsive in ourselves.
100%.
Yeah.
We do the training so that in those moments when we say that we love you or I love you, can we truly love somebody or something without that love having to be returned to us? Because whoever made requiting love a requirement for truly loving somebody, right? And his fourth one was that in those moments when we see that heroin addict swaying on the street, can we realize that's just one more component of us, of ourselves, that we're one decision, one observation away from being that person. And then when we truly confront our enemies, can we at least confront them with compassion? And so what I learned in my training, why I persist and why I did do this, is to build some sort of resiliency. And I don't want to engineer my children through all of this. I realize the best I can do is to make me the best possible me I can be. And I'm not going to be perfect at it, and it's going to be messy and it's going to be ugly. But you know what? Maybe, just maybe, I can elevate them too, such that they can realize the people who they could possibly become. And so that's all I really want to do, is to see who I can elevate alongside of me.
I love this. I love this conversation. There's so many different points that I would love to go off on. But I think what's really special about it, what I really love is, Russell and I went to India at a young age in our 20s to seek out a guru, to find knowledge. And I met many wise men in India, a few wise women. There's all kinds of wisdom there. But the truth that I wanted to point to is that I really feel like the time of seeking out these pedestal gurus or teachers it's at an end in my mind, because the wisdom, the consciousness is dispersed. It's moved into the people. And I feel like what you're speaking to is that, because consciousness isn't localized to an individual. Everybody has access to it. And we have the same accessibility to it because we're just points on the spectrum of consciousness. And we all have the same access to the infinite, because the infinite is there. It's in us. It's all around us. And we don't need to seek out a guru to have that wisdom. We can get it from inside ourselves. We can get it from communion with anyone. Like you're saying, like the heroin addict, the stranger on the street, the family member that we're estranged from, the people we live with. Like they're all a reflection of the work that we need to do in ourselves to clear our own judgments around who we are and what we are. And that spirituality is really about coming home into this state of remembering. And I love that you said that you're at the beginning of our conversation, like you're in this process of remembering who you are. And I feel like that is actually the great call that is upon us right now.
The beauty of the world right now, I believe there's more people who are pursuing that idea of an awakening to something greater than ourselves and an enlightenment than ever before in human history.
Agreed.
It's becoming more prevalent. Because if you think about it, in the days of the ancient mystics, the Buddhists, the Jesus, when you had these kind of thoughts and you taught them from the pedestal, they killed you for it. Right? We don't live in that world anymore. Right? You could be ostracized, you could be criticized, right? And history's full of the ostracization, of those people. But today it's not.
Well, our network is so big. That's the thing, is we don't live in a small community. We are connected to each other all around the world. So if this little small community says, I don't like what you're saying, there's a whole other large community over here that are like, preach, brother, right?
Absolutely. So let me tie that back into AI, right? Because I love this. I live in both worlds. I've got that. So use that same premise of community, right? Follow me on this. Would you agree that throughout history, the people who were at that cutting edge were a very small people, and the people who just wanted to burn it all down was a very small people, and then everybody else was a big bell curve of somewhere on the journey?
Yeah.
I would actually argue, as humankind has evolved, right, the base of the people who today are the true risk takers, innovators, creators, thinkers, right? I'm going to argue that whatever that percentage of the population is, it's bigger than it was in the past. And I'm going to say that that's bigger than the percentage of the people in the universe, in the world, that want to burn it all the fuck down. Am I allowed to say that?
You are.
Yeah. Let's hope so.
Yep. And here's my analogy for AI. Since there's more good in the world than bad in the world, when we create AI for bad, it's inevitably going to happen. I'm going to argue that the AI for good is going to overwhelm it. Because there's no way humans are going to defeat bad AI. The only way to defeat bad AI is going to be with good AI. And since there's a greater percentage of people who want to live selflessly and altruistically than there are people who want to burn it down, that gives me great hope for humanity. Because in the age of AI, we're going to grow faster in the number of people who seek enlightenment and who seek salvation through being more human.
Yeah.
The machines don't have a pulse. They will never sit with a friend in grief. They'll never cry at the birth of a child. They'll never sit in awe at a sunset. They will do everything mechanical that we can't do, but they'll never be human. That's our job.
Yeah.
And it is giving us the opportunity to find that spirituality, because it's going to teach us we were never meant to do.
You know, it does remind me of something that George Carlin said, that maybe the true purpose of humans on Earth was to make Earth plus plastic. And we had Earth before, now we have Earth plus plastic. And it's,
Earth plus plastic. That's right. You say that wasn't our purpose.
That's our sole purpose, by God. So just to set that joke up for the context of what I'm about to say is joking slightly, that Harmony and I were arguing about the anxiety around AI and its demonic purpose that could cause the extinction of humanity. And I said to her, "Is like, well, I'm Team Earth. I'm not Team Humans. I'm Team Earth. This is our planet, and 99.9% of the species that have been on this planet are extinct. I'm Team those populations too.
Yep.
Human beings become extinct by AI, and it becomes a kind of Borg model, or it becomes the Beta Prime by the Harkonnens.
This is the last time in human history that we are 100% biological entities. Inside 2 decades, we'll have nanobots crawling through our body, keeping us. It was Yuval Harari who wrote the book Homo Deus. He said that man has spent the last millennia trying not to die by disease, famine, and war, and we will spend the next millennia living as gods and living forever.
Methuselahs. Yeah. Just to say that, that's fine by me. I'm Team Earth. And if this is how it's going to turn out, then great. It's just, it would be great to see 1,000 years from now. And if consciousness is the foundation of all quanta and the whole universe at a macro scale, then we are going to see it. And we just can continuously see, and the seer continuously observes itself.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, that's a very right out of the quantum books. And it's funny, it's where I find myself gravitating back to, when you take a look at phenomena like quantum entanglement and quantum erasure. Right? And just today I was talking to a biologist friend, and we were just marveling over that in the biologic process, when we create a human being, the cell divides about 264 times, right? Stem cells, and in the 265th time, everywhere in life, the cell begins to differentiate. And it differentiates not just to what cell it's going to become, but it differentiates to where in the embryo it needs to be in order to grow the cell that it's growing, the tissue of the 1,000 types of tissue. But here's the amazing thing. Nowhere in human DNA, in the human body, is the instructions for what the cell becomes or where the cell goes. So where does that come from?
Made intelligence.
It comes from something that we haven't discovered yet, but in the age of AI, we will.
Wow.
Well, that's a mic dropping moment. And
I'm feeling more positive about AI after
Good.
talking to you.
Yeah, one last story. Can I tell one last story?
Yeah, please.
So this was just happened the other day. This was my 7-year-old daughter. We're sitting at breakfast, and she was having an issue with a little girl at school. Girls are tough, man, on each other. But my wife was giving her some sage advice, right? And she was like, look, I know you call each other friends, but you know what? We're imperfect. And sometimes friends build each other up, and sometimes friends tear each other down. But at some point in your life, sweetie, you're going to have to make the decision as to when she is crossed over and no longer being a friend. But you'll have to make that decision, and that's going to happen many times in your life.
Yeah.
And I thought, you know what? As I'm sitting there sipping my coffee, I thought, you know what? Good for her. That was beautiful. And my daughter goes, yeah, Ma, I don't find her very zen. That made Daddy put his coffee down. Now, I full well know that she knows that word from me.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So I turned to her and I'm like, sweetie, explain to me, when you say zen, what do you mean zen? She looks back, she goes, well, she's always worried about what we did yesterday and what we're going to do tomorrow and what this person said and what that person and how we're going to do. She just never wants to play right now. Why can't we just play right now, right here? Why can't we just have fun now? And I thought, yeah, you're talking about living in presence.
Yeah.
Again, I know you heard that from me.
Yeah.
But why is it so important that we live in the present moment? And she goes, well, Dad, come on. It was just like that movie we just watched with the bear. I go, the bear? And I realized we had just watched Kung Fu Panda.
Yeah.
And she goes, it's like what that old guy said. I go, yeah, Master Ube, what did he say? And she kind of got it out. She goes, the past is history, the future is a mystery, and today is a gift, and that's why we call it the present.
The present.
I had a tear in my eye. And I go, baby, I want you to know that I'm so proud of you right now. Because if I was to go to school and I was to ask every student, hell, every parent, every teacher, what does it mean to be Zen? And what is the power of living in the present moment? Nobody could give me an answer as beautiful as that. And she looks at me and says, Dad, I don't even know what I'm talking about. And I go, and here's the point of the story. I go, I get it, babe. I get it. Your little 7-year-old brain can't quite intellectualize what the beauty of what you're saying is right now. You know what's special to me? Your heart knows it's right. And I turned to my wife with a tear in my eye, and she's like, you're living your best life right now, right?
Yeah.
I go, you're not kidding. Because, babe, here's the point. This is who we're handing the world to. She's 7 years old.
Yeah.
I was 40 before I even had a sense that this was even possible. And here she is at 7, and she can't intellectualize it, but she knows in her heart that this is the way of the world. That's why I say to all the young people out there, man, stick to it. We lived to work. They are working to live. And they're right.
It's interesting. I feel like with the rise of AI, as we've spoke about, it does. I mean, for me, I feel like the positive side of it is that it is going to absolutely move us out of our heads into our hearts, because
100%.
it has the head beat, right? Like we can't beat it in the mind. It is the mind. It's like,
and it's going to spread like wildfire, because right now we're here even talking because you guys are building your brand. I'm building my personal brand as this, entrepreneur, technologist, modern day mystic. And 5 years ago, unless you or I had this giant social media following, this would never be found. But today the algorithms are made that somebody who puts in there, show me a person who's transformed, who's older than 50 years old, and they're going to find this talk right now, and that's going to resonate with them. And that's never happened before in human history.
Yeah. Wow.
And that's why we're doing this.
So
because we're spreading this quickly throughout the world, that it's okay to think different. It's okay to question all paradigms. It's okay to realize that you are not your mind, body, self, that you're actually something far greater. And it's within your grasp, not to behold, but to remember that's always been the case. And so that's the beauty. I love realizing that there's nothing to find. It's only to remember.
Love that.
Pete has written a book called Living in Bliss. lead with purpose and
Yes.
inspire transformation. How can people find your book, sir?
So thank you. It's on PeteSacco.com, PeteSacco.com. It's where the book is, and it's where a whole bunch of other things. I have meditation videos and a little meditation minute, and there's a lot of things that I probably am going to do with it over the years while I still build the world's data centers, one AI data center at a time, and solve the energy problems of the world and get us to a decentralized world. And I'll continue to live awakened and champion decentralization and cultivate transformation.
Beautiful. Because AI is here to stay. So we need more and more awakened and enlightened people at the helm of it, for sure. So
Thank you so much. It's been my utter pleasure to be a part of this today.
Thank you. It's really extraordinary to have you on today. Thank you so much.
Such a pleasure.
Thank you so much. It means a lot to me.
Yeah. As we wrap up, I wanted to leave you with this reflection. So much of what we talked about today, burnout, fulfillment, clarity, alignment, it all comes back to the same truth, that our inner state is constantly determining and becoming visible in our physical world, in our health, our energy, our presence, even in the way we age and express ourselves in the world. So if this conversation sparks some curiosity about how your own emotional patterns and inner frequency are showing up physically for you, then I'm inviting you to come in and explore more deeply in one of the following masterclasses. It's called The Face of Frequency: How Emotions Shape Your Beauty, Vitality, and Youthfulness. And this is an experiential space where you'll start to understand how stress, emotion, and unconscious patterns imprint on your body and how to begin to unwind them from the inside out. And if you want one-on-one attention, you can always sign up for a Spinal Energetics with me, a session, either online or in person. You're going to find the details for all of these things in the show notes, the masterclass, as well as a one-on-one Spinal Energetics session with me. And I'm just so grateful for Pete and his honesty and his wisdom, and Russell, as always, for the laughter and just his depth of curiosity and ability to make connections to all kinds of interesting things. And so thank you for listening. Thank you for being here and being open to these conversations that can really shift things for yourself and for others, and being willing to explore the unseen realm with me here in the Finding Harmony podcast. I'm so grateful for you. And until next time, continue to tune in to your intuition, feel your energy as frequency, and just notice how all of these vibrations start to affect you on a more subtle level. That's it. We've concluded another episode of the Finding Harmony podcast. I just want to thank you so much for doing the work that changes the world, starting with yourself. It truly does make a huge difference. Please make sure you have your automatic downloads turned on wherever you listen so you don't miss any of the upcoming episodes. I have so much more magic I can't wait to share with you. Lastly, if you're on Instagram, I love connecting and hearing from you. So come on over and say hello at Finding Harmony Podcast. And you can also come say hello to me personally at Harmony Slater Official. Thank you again for being here. I cannot wait to share more with you in our next episode.